oil leak comes back or see if I fixed it. In the meantime, I have to disassemble that engine stand. Not a drop of oil to be seen. No oil! I think I fixed it. I think it was just the oil return. I didn't see any oil leaking, so it's gotta be a good sign, right? Well, that sure was an interesting time. I couldn't get into the shop because my leg of the shops lost 3-phase power, but power company's outside, but apparently they can't do it. So the dude had to come in with a forklift and open up the door of the forklift for me to be able to get in through the side door because they don't have keys to the side doors for some reason. Don't know why, but we're in the shop, so I can actually get work done now. I was sitting in my car for like an hour watching YouTube and TikToks, trying to kill time until I got this fixed. So, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I want to start getting some stuff taken care of with this. I wanted to get the engine out first thing in this video, but I can't open my bay door right now, so I can't get the engine hoist in here, so it kind of sucks, but we'll work around it. So I want to get the new subframe in, I want to get the new power steering rack, and I want to get more done. I want to get the firewall cut out for cannon plugs and whatnot. So since we're taking out power steering and I can't really get the, I can bring all the components of the engine hoist in here, get it assembled, get it ready to go. But what I want to, actually I might be able to get the engine out if I can, like, we'll start today off by draining out the old power steering fluid. That way, when we go to take the rack out, it'll make a very minimal mess instead of making an absolute mess absolutely everywhere. So, my morning's been a shit show. Let's get to work. Get the turbo out of here. Sorry for any weird camera angles. Like I said, I'm very limited on space right now with the bay door having to stay shut. So, let me move our big Bertha turbo out of the way. Didn't take manifold out of my way too. How do I want to drain the fluid out of here? It's a real good question. Thank you for asking. I don't quite know yet. Get out of there, fluids. Look at that, man. We don't have to run power steering fluid anymore. You know how nice that's gonna be? Get rid of this, have electronic steering. Huge shout out to Josh. This was Josh's idea. I take absolutely no credit for it. So thank you, Josh, Mr. Bader. Guys can actually go in my sandblasting cabinet. Any fluid in there that's gotta come out? Nope. Cool, power steering lines are out. Air cooled spray. So with our 6-cylinder here, I've got everything out to be able to rip this engine out. Now I still cannot open my bay door right now, so I can't get it out, but what I can do is prepare to drop the subframe. So we're gonna get both of the front wheels pulled off. With those off, we can disconnect the sway bar, the end links, and the tie rod, and then we're also gonna have to disconnect the LCA from the subframe because this whole piece is gonna have to come out and be swapped for this one right here. So let me go through here and start yeeting all this stuff off, so that way we can swap our subframes. Try to get this engine out. I still do not have power to this bay door, and I know what some of you guys are saying, why not just use the manual chains? For some reason, my door doesn't have them. I don't know why. All I have is this lock and unlock chain that will lock and unlock the motor up there, but I have no way of opening the door, which is kind of dumb. So I think I can, I'm gonna try it. I don't know, man. I'll try. I'll see what I can make happen. I want to get this engine out, goddammit. And sometimes we gotta work under the restrictions that we may have, which sometimes is about 2 feet. So let's try to get this thing out of here. question of how the hell do I get the engine out? There we go. Look at all that room for activity in there. So now that we've got the engine out, I can actually get to work in here. I've got, and if you're gonna be doing this and disconnecting your steering linkage right here, make sure your steering wheel is straight. If you have a second person, have them hold it. I don't, so I used a lot of tape to keep my steering wheel centered and straight, so that way everything goes back together straight and centered. Now I'm gonna put the subframe in first and then the steering rack. I feel like that'll just be a little bit easier for me. Might not be, I don't know. I could be doing this entirely more difficult, but. So I'm gonna support the transmission with a floor jack that I have over there holding my door open. Come in here, disconnect the last of the stuff from the subframe, get it dropped out of the way. I know I've got one LCA on this side to disconnect and one support, and then I think I can just get the subframe right out, so. Out. I think we're ready for the subframe to come out. We are ready for the subframe to come out. All right, let's fucking do it. Let me grab the jack. There we go. Dope. Now, how do I get out of here? Ow! Well, good news. Looks like they're fixing the power. Bad news is that went really dark really fast. So I guess I'm on standby until they turn the power back on because I literally cannot see anything of what I'm doing down there. So, well, the subframe's out though. Once we get power again, I'll show you the difference between the subframe and the WRX subframe, so that way you guys can get some clarity as to why I'm swapping all the subframes and all this fun stuff. So, cool. I guess I'll just chill in the dark for now. Oh, thank God. The subframe held in by 2 bolts right now. We got a WRX subframe in my STI now. That's neat. All right, before we put this in, we have to center the rack, so that way everything is like nice and Gucci. So I'm gonna turn the rack all the way one direction until it stops. So we'll take a Sharpie, we'll mark on the shaft. I'm gonna go down the boot and then to the actual housing, and then we're gonna turn it all the way around the other way and count how many number of times it spins. 1, 2, 2 3/4. So now I'll put another mark right here. So we're gonna go back 1 and like a third. We're gonna go back 1 and then center the rack in between these 2 lines. 1, and then we're gonna stop right in between those 2 lines, right in the middle, right there. And that is centered? Is that really centered? Is that really centered? Why is one boot so far extended? The other one's not. I'm gonna go around one more time. That is centered. I mean, one boot is extended out a lot farther than the other one, but that is centered. I'm not crazy. I know how to center a steering rack. I know that's centered. So, all right, cool. Well, I guess I'll toss this guy up in the cart. Something just went into my ear. I need to get actual WRX steering rack bolts because these are not them, but for right this second, it'll work. Dude, this is insane. So let me show you this because a lot of people were asking about this. So this WRX subframe is a 2019 WRX subframe. The power steering rack is a electronic steering rack from a 2019 WRX. If this is, so I've heard that this can be done with stock ECU. Don't 100% quote me on that because I can't 100% confirm that, but look at how much this is it. There's no power steering lines anymore. So all this takes is 12 volts, ground, and then I believe in there, I need to look at the wiring diagram, but I'm pretty sure it's just a signal and 12 volts for the actual steering rack. That's insanely cleaner. There are no more lines we have to worry about, nothing. So that in itself is just really cool. Now, if you are doing this swap, if you have an EJ VA STI and you want to do this, you will 100% need this WRX subframe. The mounting locations for the power steering rack are different and they take different bolts. Now on top of that, there is one big thing that some of you may see, some of you may not see. There is no cutout for an up pipe on this WRX subframe. If you look at this STI subframe over here, there is a cutout for the up pipe right there. You do not have that on these WRX subframes. So if this is something that you want to do, you do have to cut out part of the subframe right there to allocate a space for the up pipe. Obviously, because we have a fender exit, we do not need to, and that can just stay as is. I will have to notch the mounting holes in the subframe for the engine mounts for the engine. That's super easy to do. That is actually really cool to see. So I'm gonna go back under the car real quick, start hooking up the rest of the stuff, get the sway bar back on, get the tie rods swapped out for our Super Pro ones that we have with the roll center adjustment kit. So let me start cleaning up all the suspension stuff real quick. And then we're gonna jump back up in here and start cutting a hole in the firewall back there underneath of where the original grommet went for the new engine harness. Ow, that's my finger. So we've got the steering rack fully installed, the sway bar, lower control arms, everything like that bolted back up. I'm gonna have to double check the centering on that steering rack because I don't think it's right, so it's whatever. But now we have an electronic rack in here, so it frees up a ton of room. Next up, we need to trace out and cut the hole for the Maven cannon plugs to pass through the firewall. Now this firewall is kind of dumb because nothing's flat. There are no flat spots. So we've got this right here, which is like the flattest spot, but you guys can see that hump right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a hammer and kind of flatten that out just a little bit more just to be able to get it to the proper size so that way we can get our cannon plugs on there. So let's start beating the shit out of our firewall to flatten it a little bit and then we can start cutting. Alright, let's do a little bit of cutting. So I obviously have more work to do with that, like clean up the cuts. I just don't have the Dremel bit here with me that I need. It's kind of it's the same thing people use to like port heads. So I've got that at the house. I'll grab that, come back, we'll clean that up, get that plate permanently installed in there. Obviously get the metal behind there painted because we don't want anything to rust because that is steel. So sweet, dude, that's like some dope progress. New subframe in, doing it in the dark, getting electronic rack in. I gotta figure out how to center this thing because even though I did that, I feel like something is just not right because my tie rod don't make sense, but I'll figure it out. Like I said over here, I do want to leave that upper grommet hole because there are some things that I still have to pass through the firewall that I do not want in the cannon plug, such as like a Haltech wideband wire harness, whole bunch of stuff that's going to be going through there, and I just don't want to have to. There are wires that I just don't want to cut. Wheel speed sensor stuff, things like that. So sweet. I do think it's a little bit funny because this car is just becoming an abomination of so many cars. It's part 2015 or 2019 plus WRX. It's part 2015 plus STI. It's part 1995 SVX. There's so many mismatched components in this car. I mean, the VIN says it's an STI. The parts disagree, but cool because the things that I wanted to do before, I can do now, and there's a lot that we have to do. I still have a IWIRE DCCD controller that we need to put in this car also, which is something that is obviously going to pass through that firewall as well. And I think we'll do that while we have the engine and everything else out. I need internet access here so that way I can watch the install video on it. Otherwise I'm gonna be so lost in the sauce because, or if there's like instructions I can print out and just bring over here, that'll probably be easier. But there's a lot, dude. a lot. The whole shop is literally just filled with parts. Absolutely everywhere. Wires go, you've got 3 center ones. 2 of these are one harness, one is its own harness, and those are gonna run down here. You've got your G sensor right there, and then right here is the connector that'll plug into the standard DCCD drive or the SI drive to be able to control everything. Pretty easy enough. There is a harness that runs over here, which is the last one on there, that will then plug into this guy, which is my LED indicator to show me what the differential is doing. So we have a lot going on in here. We've got the actual module itself, the Spyder controller. It's got like a yaw sensor or a G sensor, some wiring stuff. This will be interesting because I guess I already had the instructions printed out. Okay. I don't know what's going to all have to go where because I'm using a standalone. Some of that information is going to have to be pulled from the standalone, and I can pull that information. I just can't fully wire it up yet until we get the Haltech cluster put back in there, because I can pull information from the Haltech cluster like RPM, vehicle speed, things like that this module may need. So I'm just going to hop in the car and start figuring this stuff out. Step 1, transmission adapter. Undo the one plug that went to the old DCCD transmission adapter. Get out of my way. We'll plug right into the transmission. Then we've got these 2 cables here. IWIRE says to mount the box. We recommend behind the stereo near the firewall or transmission tunnel on the passenger side. I think the best spot's going to be right on top of the SRS module. Connect the IWIRE transmission adapter item 1 in this kit to both the new transmission stock harness and the stock harness. These plugs are located in the engine bay near the transmission. Okay, so this is the one we're targeting right here. White, red, and black. So take our Deutsch connector. We'll go. Got our Deutsch connector pinned. Pin 1 is white, pin 2 is black, pin 3 is red. We got that. I'm gonna clean up the wiring in here in a little bit. I just want to focus on getting it all figured out of where it's going. So we'll clean up all this wiring later. So far, so good. Transmission stuff's all hooked up. Back inside the car. So I got the DCCD controller installed. It was honestly way easier than I was expecting it to be. So to give you guys a brief rundown of inside of the car and where all these wires go, you've got these 3 center ones. 2 of these are one harness, one is its own harness, and those are gonna run down here. You've got your G sensor right there, and then right here is the connector that'll plug into the standard DCCD drive or the SI drive to be able to control everything. Pretty easy enough. There is also one harness that runs over here, which is the last one on there, that will then plug into this guy, which is my LED indicator to show me what the differential is doing, if it's locked, if it's open, etc. And then this will clip into the lower panel down there to be able to show me DCCD is doing. The other thing is this connector here. So you've got a couple of wires coming off of it. You have a green, a blue, and a brown. The brown is your e-brake switch, which is just going to jump into the e-brake right there. Super easy, it's all plug and play. The blue one is one that we're gonna have to do later. I'll come back to that one in a minute. The green one is a ground. You can either ground it on this side of the dash bar or the other side. I chose the other side. This blue wire, this is the one that we're gonna have to do a little bit of digging on, because this needs to be your throttle position sensor input, or your TPS. So since we're using a standalone, I'm gonna have to wire this into the standalone and not the stock ECM, which is easy enough. I can do that. I believe it's going to wire directly into the gauge cluster up there, because that'll show me my TPS input, which in turn will show the DCCD controller its TPS input. So we'll set that one aside. And then lastly is the connectors up in the engine bay. And then for mounting this right now, this is temporary. I just have it zip tied down to the SRS module. I will make an actual like mount or bracket for that to be able to keep it there. I mean, it's pretty sturdy already. It's not gonna go anywhere, but honestly, dude, this thing is stupid easy to install. Like, they give you 17 pages, but honestly could probably do it with 1 page. But they do provide like exceptional like pictures and documentation showing you everything. But it's really not as scary as you might think. Now in the engine bay, this is also temporary because I don't have all the wiring stuff here to be able to just clean this up nicely. You've got 2 connectors. One of them is going to go to the actual transmission harness there. It's going to jump into 2 connectors. One of them is going to be a DTM connector, which you pin one side, and then I chose to run it through the old sound supposer spot right there. And then the other side, it's all plug and play, man. It literally all just plugs in. So now this car has a working, well, soon to be working actual DCCD controller, so the differential won't be stuck open all the time like it was before. Like I said, last thing that we have to do is just that TPS input, but that's gonna have to wait a little bit. So that's all I'm gonna do right now in this video. My other cannon plug gets dropped off today, so that way we can go ahead and finish that harness back there, get that mocked up. Once I get that harness done, I can get the dash back in, all that stuff back in for wiring aspects, because that'll mean that all the interior wiring is done. I can start feeding it through to our cannon plug guy there. We'll get that thing permanently done in the next video. I forgot to grab the tools this morning, it's my fault. But we now have a functional DCCD controller in the car to be able to control the center differential and the 6-speed. We now have an electronic rack in there, a WRX subframe, and the location for the cannon plugs to be able to feed through the firewall. Pretty dope. Also, for those asking on the WRX steering rack, Josh was the one who came up with the idea, and he was playing around with the wiring on it. He was able to get it figured out. I believe the smaller DTM connector just needs can high, can low. The other connector needs a fused 12 volt and a battery ground. I believe that's all it needs. Josh has a really good post up on his Instagram and his Facebook if you guys are looking at doing this swap. Jet back to the house, so that way I can go get this cannon plug. I'll probably come back over here tonight in the next video, or for the next video, and start finishing out that wiring. So back home, this just got dropped off, so I'm about to obviously go finish editing this video, get it uploaded, and go directly back to the shop to start getting our harness completed. So with that, that's all I got for you guys on this one. If you liked the video, you know what to do. Go ahead and hit that like button, turn it black, blue, green, yellow, purple, silver sign, whatever color turns for you. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you want to be one of these corners, no idea which one quite yet, but with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. So peace out, homies.